Alright, we're going to be processing survey files, or the boundary and topo file we get from the surveyor. So we're going to split this file up into 3 drawings: the existing ground surface drawing, which is the source EG, the boundary line work, which is our XR boundary, and our topography line work, which is the XR topo. So here I've got the boundary and topo drawing from the surveyor. As you can see, if I go into the prospector tool space, we'll see that there's an existing surface with this drawing, and basically we're going to want to extract that drawing so that it just is in our source EG form. I'm going to go into the source EG drawing of the project, and then I'm going to go back into the topo drawing and right click on data shortcuts, set working folder. Then I'm going to find the client project folder. I'm actually going to hover and stay into this folder here and not click on the Russell Rogers. So I'll select folder here. And once I've done that, I'm going to create a new data shortcut folder. Then I'm going to copy the name of the specific project folder, which is the Russell Rogers with the 001 in front of it. Copy and paste that into the name, then press OK. Now the data shortcut link is created, as you can see. Once that's done, I'm going to create data shortcut in the boundary topo file and check the X surface drawing. Then I'm going to go to the source EG drawing and associate the project with our new created data shortcut folder, and I'm going to bring in that surface. Then I'm going to put it on our layers and rename it to EG_RR for the project. Now I've brought it in, but now it's still just a data shortcut reference. So I'm going to go to the surfaces, right click on the surface, and I'm going to promote it. Now that it's live in the source EG drawing, I'm going to go back to the topo drawing and go to the data shortcuts, and I'm going to right click on the surface and remove the X surface. And since I'm in the source drawing, I'm going to associate the data shortcut folder we created and now create a data shortcut referencing the EG_RR. Basically, that creates a data reference to this drawing here, separate from the original topo boundary file. We do this so that we can leave the boundary and topo drawing that we received from the surveyor alone while we have our own separate drawings with the exact information. So moving on, we're going to go to the XR boundary, which just contains all our right-of-way lines, property lines, and easement lines. So this one's pretty straightforward. I'm going to open up the XR boundary file, and the XR boundary file will contain our line types. So I'm going to go back to the boundary and topo drawing, and I'm going to find all the boundary lines, easement lines, center lines, section lines, right-of-way lines, anything pertaining to the boundary of the site. Then I'm going to just isolate the layers for those, copy paste those at 00, and bring them into our XR boundary file. Once I've brought it all in, I'm just going to take all the line work that I brought in and make sure that they match our layers. So I'm moving the layers here, and then I'm just going to match properties to the center lines, to what is our property lines, right-of-way lines, etc. So this one's pretty straightforward. It's basically just separating the boundary from the surface and from the topo line work. So one thing to note, any annotation, for example, document numbers or APN numbers that come along with the boundary and topo file, I like to put on the vAnno layer just so that we have that information copied over in our drawings that we can reference, but we can also just freeze that in our actual sheet. Alright, so the final portion of the survey processing is the XR topo drawing. So this is all the existing topo features and existing utilities. So right now I'm just going to isolate each layer and bring that into our XR topo onto our respective layers. This part can be tedious, but with isolating the layers and using the Express tool to switch out the blocks with our blocks, we can do this pretty quickly. So right now I'm just putting the existing sewer on our layer, any annotation on the Viano layer, and then I'm switching out our blocks with the surveyor's blocks so that everything is shown the way that we typically do it. Here I'm putting in the flow arrows on the sewer. We'll need to do this for storm and sewer since they're gravity systems and the agencies like to see which way the sewer or storm is flowing. So here I'm using the array tool, and with the array tool I'm allowed to just copy those flow arrows along a polyline at a specified distance, so that makes it easy for me to just throw it on there. Then I'm going into the topo drawing of the surveyor and deleting the line work that I've brought in. Keep in mind that I'm not saving the boundary and topo drawing. This is just so that I could see what's left to bring over and to make sure that I've got everything on our layers and not missed on anything. So I'm just gonna fast forward through this part. As you can see, I'm just putting everything on our layers and putting everything on the Viano layer, that's annotation, and just bringing everything in, making sure I don't miss anything. So earlier I mentioned the Express tool. So if we go to the Express, blocks, and replacement, we can actually choose the surveyor blocks, like the street light for example, and replace it with our street light symbol, and it will replace it everywhere where that symbol slash block is used. I just like to make sure that everything has been brought in correctly, and something about the Express tool, you'll have to make sure that the scaling is correct when you use it, so that it isn't bringing it in at one scale, for example. So the final step is just me purging any blocks or layers that aren't being used in the topo drawing, just to clean it up. And that's pretty much it for survey processing. Basically creating the source EG, XR topo, and XR boundary. That way we can bring them in individually and use them as we need for the sheets.